No extra food for her. Those 5 words changed everything. My daughter-in-law Ashley said them with a smile so fake it could have been plastic, right there in front of everyone at Morton's Steakhouse in downtown Chicago. The most expensive restaurant in the city, where a single steak costs more than most people's weekly groceries. And you know what's crazy? She was ordering $85 lobster tails for everyone else at the table. Everyone. Her parents, my son David, even her spoiled younger brother who'd just shown up uninvited. But me, the woman who raised David single-handedly for 18 years, I got a glass of tap water and a bread basket. But here's the thing, and you're gonna want to hear this whole story because what happened next will absolutely blow your mind. I'm talking about the kind of revenge that doesn't need violence or screaming, the kind that served ice cold with a side of, "You had this coming." Trust me, by the end of this, you'll understand why Ashley is currently crying in her BMW while I'm sitting pretty in my new house. Yeah, you heard that right. My house. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up at that table, watching my own family feast on surf and turf while treating me like I was invisible. Because this didn't start at Morton's. Nah, this started 3 years ago when David brought Ashley home for the first time. I still remember that day. I'd made my famous pot roast, the one David used to beg for every Sunday when he was growing up. I'd cleaned the apartment until it sparkled, even though it was just a modest 2-bedroom place in the suburbs. Nothing fancy, but it was home. It was where I'd raised my boy after his father walked out on us when David was just 7 years old. Ashley walked in wearing a dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Designer heels clicking on my linoleum floor like she was afraid of catching something. She looked around my living room, at my secondhand couch, my old TV, the family photos on the walls, and I saw it. That little wrinkle of her nose, that tiny sign of disgust she tried to hide but couldn't quite manage. "This is quaint," she'd said, and David had laughed like she'd made some clever joke. I should have known then. Should have seen the writing on the wall, but I was just so happy David had found someone. He'd been so focused on his career at the investment firm, working 80-hour weeks, barely dating. I thought, finally, my boy's gonna have a family of his own. What a fool I was. The wedding happened fast. Too fast, if you ask me. 6 months after they met, Ashley was walking down the aisle in a $30,000 dress while I sat in the third row, at my own son's wedding. Ashley's family took up the first 2 rows, all 40 of them. And me? I got placed behind Ashley's hairdresser and her Pilates instructor. But I kept my mouth shut. I smiled. I even gave a toast at the reception that made people cry. Talked about how proud I was of David, how I knew his father would have been proud too, how I welcomed Ashley into our family with open arms. Ashley had rolled her eyes when I mentioned working 2 jobs to put David through Northwestern. Like my sacrifices were embarrassing to her. Things got worse after the wedding. David started forgetting to return my calls. Sunday dinners became, "Sorry, Mom, we're busy." Birthdays turned into text messages instead of visits. And whenever I did see them, Ashley was there with her comments. "Oh, Sarah, is that a new dress? Walmart has such interesting styles these days. David, honey, should we help your mom with her bills? I know things must be tight on a teacher's salary. Maybe we should find you a nice retirement home soon, Sarah. Somewhere with people your own age." I was 58, not exactly retirement home material. But to Ashley, I was already ancient history, a relic from David's past that didn't fit into their shiny new life. The invitation to Morton's came out of nowhere. David actually called me, not a text, an actual phone call. His voice sounded different, warmer, like the son I used to know. "Mom, we want to take you out. Somewhere special. Ashley feels bad about how distant we've been. She wants to make things right." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. I went out and bought a new dress. Nothing designer, but nice. Navy blue, classic, something that wouldn't embarrass them at a fancy restaurant. I even got my hair done at a real salon instead of the budget place I usually went to. When I walked into Morton's that night, I felt like I was walking into a movie. Crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. White tablecloths so pristine they looked like fresh snow. The smell of money practically floating in the air. The hostess looked at me like I'd wandered in by mistake until I mentioned David's name. They were already seated at a round table near the window, the best spot in the house. David in his expensive suit, Ashley in something designer and cream-colored that probably cost more than my car. But what surprised me was seeing Ashley's parents there too, Richard and Linda Morrison, old money from the North Shore, the kind of people who had their faces in the society pages of the Tribune. "Sarah," Ashley said, her voice dripping with fake enthusiasm. "So glad you could make it. Traffic wasn't too bad from your side of town, was it? Your side of town. Like I lived in some different universe instead of just 20 miles away." I sat down in the only empty chair, positioned between Ashley's parents like I was being supervised. The leather menu felt heavy in my hands. "No prices listed. That's how you know a place is stupid expensive." "The lobster here is divine," Linda Morrison said. "Not to me, but to the table in general. Richard and I had it last week with the Vanderbilts." Of course they knew the Vanderbilts. Of course they did. The waiter appeared, all polish and professionalism. "Good evening. May I start you with some drinks? We have an excellent wine selection tonight. Champagne," Ashley announced. "The Dom Perignon? We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" I asked, genuinely curious. Ashley and David exchanged a look. One of those married couple looks that makes you feel like an outsider in your own family. "Just life," Ashley said vaguely. "Success, family." The waiter nodded and turned to take our food orders. This is when everything went to hell. "We'll have 5 of the twin lobster tails," Ashley said, then paused and looked directly at me. "Actually, make that 4. No extra food for her." She pointed at me like I was a stray dog who'd wandered too close to their picnic. The waiter blinked, confused. "Ma'am?" "She already ate," David jumped in quickly. Too quickly. "Didn't you, Mom?" I hadn't eaten since breakfast. My stomach was actually growling. But the way they were all looking at me, Ashley with her cruel smile, her parents with their distant disgust, and David with his coward's eyes begging me not to make a scene, I knew this was a test. Or worse, a message. "I'm fine with just water," I said quietly. "Tap water," Ashley specified to the waiter. "No need for bottled. We shouldn't waste money." The waiter looked uncomfortable, but nodded and walked away. I sat there, feeling like I'd been slapped in front of a room full of people. Which I guess I had been. "You know," Richard Morrison said, cutting through the silence, "Ashley tells us you're a teacher, Sandra." "Sarah," I corrected. "And yes, I teach 3rd grade. How noble," Linda said, the word noble sounding like pathetic in her mouth. "Though I can't imagine the pay is very good." "How do you manage?" "I manage fine," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Mom's always been good at—" "Making do," David said, and there was something in his voice I didn't recognize. Shame? Embarrassment? "She's very resourceful." Ashley laughed, that tinkling fake laugh she'd perfected. "Resourceful. That's one way to put it. Remember when she brought that homemade cake to Emma's birthday party? The one from a box mix? Emma, my granddaughter. My precious 5-year-old granddaughter who called me Nana and loved my box mix cakes because I always let her lick the spoon. It was so sweet," Ashley continued, her voice dripping with condescension. "Everyone else had professional cakes, of course, from that bakery on Michigan Avenue, but Sarah tried her best with what she could afford. The champagne arrived. 4 glasses. The waiter didn't even look at me as he poured, like I'd become invisible. They toasted to success, to family, to the future. I sat there with my empty hands, watching them clink their $300 champagne while I waited for my tap water. Then the lobsters arrived. 4 massive plates with tails the size of my forearm, swimming in butter, garnished with things I couldn't even name. The smell was incredible. My stomach twisted with hunger and humiliation in equal measure. Ashley made a show of cracking her lobster, letting the sound echo across the table. She dipped a huge piece in butter, lifted it to her mouth, and moaned like she was in a commercial. "Absolutely perfect," she announced. "You know they fly these in fresh from Maine every morning. Each tail costs $85, can you imagine? $85 for one meal." She looked right at me when she said it, right into my eyes, making sure I understood that they were eating my monthly grocery budget in a single sitting while I sat there with nothing. "Some people," Linda added, "will never understand the finer things in life. It's not their fault, really. They just weren't raised with proper culture." I wanted to tell her that proper culture meant treating people with respect. That money didn't make you classy. That I'd raised a son who graduated summa cum laude from Northwestern while she'd raised a daughter who thought cruelty was a personality trait. But I didn't. I just smiled and nodded. "You're being very quiet, Mom," David said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said calmly. "I'm just enjoying watching my family eat." Ashley snorted. "Your family?" "David's family is at this table. His real family, the one that matters." That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke, no. Breaking would have meant tears and drama and giving them what they wanted. This was different. This was like a switch flipping from doormat to done. But I didn't let it show. "Not yet, of course," I agreed pleasantly. "You're absolutely right." Ashley blinked, surprised by my easy agreement. She'd wanted a fight. She'd wanted tears. She wanted to break me in front of everyone and have them witness my humiliation. But here's what Ashley didn't know about Sarah Coleman. I didn't survive raising a kid alone by being weak. I didn't work 2 jobs for 15 years by giving up easy. And I sure as hell didn't get to 58 years old without learning that the best revenge isn't served hot with screaming and drama. It's served ice cold, with a smile when they least expect it. The waiter finally brought my water. Room temperature, tap water in a regular glass while everyone else sipped champagne from crystal flutes. He set it down like he was embarrassed for me, then hurried away. "So," Richard Morrison said, sawing into his lobster with a gold-plated knife, "David tells us you live in Cicero. That must be interesting, Cicero." The way he said it, you'd think I lived in a war zone instead of a perfectly decent working-class neighborhood. "It's home," I said simply. "For now," Ashley added, exchanging another one of those looks with David. "Actually, that's part of why we wanted to have this dinner. Here it comes," I thought. "The real reason for this whole show." David cleared his throat. "Mom, we've been thinking about your living situation." "What about it?" "Well," Ashley jumped in, "you're not getting any younger. That apartment has all those stairs. The neighborhood isn't exactly safe. We think it might be time to consider alternatives." "Alternatives," I repeated, taking a sip of my water. Linda Morrison nodded enthusiastically. "There are some lovely assisted living communities these days. Not nursing homes, of course. More like retirement villages. For people who need a little extra help." I was 58 years old. I ran 5Ks on weekends. I could probably bench press Ashley if I needed to. "But sure, let's talk about assisted living." "We've already looked at some places," David said, pulling out his phone. "There's one in Indiana that's very affordable. About 2 hours away, but it has great reviews. 2 hours away. Far enough that visiting would be a hassle. Far enough that I'd slowly disappear from their lives completely." "And the best part," Ashley said, her eyes gleaming with sick satisfaction, "is that once you sell your apartment, you'll have enough to cover the down payment. We've already talked to a realtor." They'd already talked to a realtor about my apartment, the place I'd paid off working doubles and weekend shifts for 20 years. "That's very thoughtful of you," I said, my voice perfectly calm. Ashley frowned. She'd expected resistance, anger, tears, not this calm acceptance. "There's more," she continued, clearly thrown off her game. "We also need to discuss Emma, my granddaughter." My heart squeezed at her name. "What about Emma?" "Well, with you moving to Indiana, we'll need to make other arrangements for childcare. We've enrolled her in an after-school program. Very exclusive. They teach Mandarin and violin. But I pick her up every Tuesday and Thursday," I said. "We have our special days. We go to the park, make cookies, read stories." "Exactly," Ashley cut me off. "Cookies and stories." Meanwhile, her classmates are learning second languages and playing instruments. "Do you see the problem?" "The problem," Richard Morrison added, dabbing his mouth with his napkin, "is that Emma needs to be surrounded by excellence if she's going to succeed in life. No offense, Sarah. But what can you really offer her? You don't speak multiple languages. You don't play instruments. You don't have connections to get her into the right schools. You're just," he waved his hand dismissively, "ordinary. Like it was a disease." David hadn't said a word during this exchange. He just sat there, eating his $85 lobster, letting them tear me apart piece by piece. "David," I said quietly, "do you agree with all this?" He finally looked up, and for just a second, I saw my little boy in his eyes. The one who used to cry when he scraped his knee. The one who made me Mother's Day cards out of construction paper. The one who promised he'd take care of me when he grew up. Then he blinked, and that boy was gone. "It's for the best, Mom. You'll understand eventually." "Of course I will," I said, smiling. "You're absolutely right. All of you." Ashley narrowed her eyes. "Why are you being so agreeable?" "Why shouldn't I be? You're offering to handle everything for me. The apartment, the moving, Emma's schedule. It's very generous." "It's not about generosity," Linda said. "It's about doing what's appropriate. There are certain standards that need to be maintained." "Standards," I repeated. "Like not letting the poor teacher grandmother embarrass you in front of your country club friends?" Finally, a spark of the anger they'd been fishing for. Ashley practically glowed with triumph. "Now, Sarah," she said in a patronizing tone, "there's no need to be bitter. We're trying to help you, to give you a comfortable retirement where you don't have to worry about keeping up." "Keeping up with what?" "With us," she said simply. "With our lifestyle. With the level of society David has worked so hard to join. You should be proud of him for transcending his humble beginnings. Humble beginnings. Also known as me working myself to the bone so he could have everything. I am proud," I said. "Incredibly proud. David has come so far from that little boy who only had one pair of shoes for school." David's face flushed red. "Mom, what? It's true. Remember when you had to use duct tape to keep the sole attached? But we made it work, didn't we? Just like when I had to choose between paying the heating bill or buying your graphing calculator for AP Calculus. The calculator won, of course. We wore coats inside for a month, but you got into Northwestern. The table had gone silent. Even the waiter seemed to sense the tension and stayed away." "That's exactly the kind of story," Ashley said slowly, "that we can never have Emma hear. Can you imagine? Her telling her friends at Pemberton Academy that her father grew up poor? That her grandmother was a cleaning lady?" "I wasn't a cleaning lady," I said. "I was a teacher who cleaned offices at night to pay for David's college." "Same difference," Richard Morrison said dismissively. "Manual labor is manual labor." "Anyway," Ashley continued, pulling out her phone, "we've prepared some documents for you to sign. Power of attorney, mostly, just to help facilitate the sale of your apartment and the transition to Indiana." She slid her phone across the table, showing me a DocuSign link. They'd really thought of everything. Ship me off to Indiana, sell my home, cut me out of Emma's life, all neat and legal. "You want me to sign this now?" "Here? Why wait?" Ashley said. "The sooner we get this handled, the better for everyone." I picked up her phone, looking at the document. It wasn't just power of attorney. It gave them complete control over my finances, my medical decisions, everything. It was basically signing my life away. "This is very thorough," I said. "Our lawyer is excellent," Linda said proudly. "He handles all our family's affairs." I bet he does, I thought. I bet he handles all sorts of things for people like you. "There's just one problem," I said, handing the phone back to Ashley. "What problem?" she snapped, her patience finally wearing thin. "Well, you seem to be under the impression that I'm some helpless old woman who needs to be managed. But here's the thing, and you're gonna love this, I'm not just a teacher." David frowned. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my own phone, opening my banking app. "Remember when Grandma Rose died 5 years ago?" "Your mother?" David said. "She didn't have anything. She lived in that tiny house in Indiana." "That tiny house," I said, turning my phone to show them the screen, "sat on 40 acres of farmland. Farmland that's now being developed into a shopping center. The sale closed 6 months ago." The number on the screen made Ashley's champagne glass freeze halfway to her lips. 3.2 million, that's impossible," David stammered. "Oh, it gets better," I continued, scrolling to another account. "Remember my brother Tommy? The one you said was a deadbeat because he played poker for a living? Well, turns out he was really good at it. When he died last year, guess who was his only beneficiary?" Another account. Another 7 figures. Ashley's face had gone pale. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check the county records. Check the probate court. It's all public information." I put my phone away. But here's the really funny part. I kept working, kept living in my apartment, kept shopping at Walmart. Want to know why? Nobody answered. They all looked like they'd been slapped with a wet fish. Because I wanted to see who really loved me. Who valued me for me, not for what I could give them. And now I know. "Mom, David started, his voice panicked. We didn't mean, oh, you meant it, I said, standing up. Every word, every insult, every attempt to push me out of your life. You meant all of it. Sit down, Ashley hissed. People are staring. Let them stare. Let them see exactly who you are. I picked up my water glass, looking at it thoughtfully. You know what? This water suddenly looks perfect. I poured it over Ashley's head. She shrieked, jumping up, her perfect makeup running down her face. You crazy bitch. Maybe, I said calmly, but I'm a rich, crazy bitch. And you just showed me exactly why you'll never see a penny of it. Richard Morrison stood up, his face purple with rage. This is assault. We'll sue. Go ahead, I said. I can afford better lawyers than you now. Way better, David grabbed my arm. Mom, please, let's talk about this. I looked at him, really looked at him. My son, my baby boy, the child I'd sacrificed everything for. And I saw a stranger. We are talking, I said, pulling my arm free. For the first time in 3 years, we're having an honest conversation. You're embarrassed by me. You're ashamed of where you came from. You let your wife treat me like garbage because you're so desperate to fit into her world. That's not Emma's birthday party, I interrupted. The box cake Ashley mentioned? Emma specifically asked for that cake. She said, Nana, I want the chocolate cake we make together. But you were too embarrassed to tell your fancy friends that your daughter prefers my box mix to their $200 designer cakes. Tears were running down David's face now. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sorry you got caught, I said. Sorry I'm not the poor, helpless woman you thought I was. Sorry you can't ship me off to Indiana and steal my apartment. We weren't going to steal, what would you call it? Convincing me to sign over power of attorney? Making me sell my home? Isolating me from my granddaughter? That's not theft? The entire restaurant was watching now. Other diners had their phones out recording. I recognized one of them, a woman from my school district. This would be all over Facebook by midnight. Please, Ashley said, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Can we discuss this somewhere private? Like you discussed my future? Behind my back? With lawyers and realtors? I shook my head. No, I think this public setting is perfect. After all, you chose it. You wanted witnesses to my humiliation. Well, now you have witnesses to yours. I reached into my purse and pulled out $100 bill, dropping it on the table. For my water. Keep the change. You're gonna need it for the dry cleaning. I started to walk away, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and David? That promotion you're getting? The one from Ashley's daddy's connections? You might want to start looking for a new job. See that shopping center being built on Grandma Rose's land? I'm the majority investor now, and guess which investment firm just lost the contract to manage it? His face went white. It was his firm, the contract that would have guaranteed his promotion. But Mom, you should know your place, I said, echoing the words he'd said to me earlier. And your place is no longer in my life. I walked out of Morton's Steakhouse with my head held high, leaving behind 4 people with their mouths hanging open and lobster getting cold on their plates. The valet looked confused when I handed him my ticket, probably wondering why someone was leaving so early from such an expensive dinner. Bad date? He asked, trying to be friendly. The worst, I said, then smiled. But the best thing that ever happened to me. My phone started buzzing before I even got to my car. David calling, Ashley calling, numbers I didn't recognize, probably Richard and Linda Morrison. I turned it off. They could stew in their own embarrassment for a while. The drive home felt different. For 3 years, I'd driven these streets feeling small, feeling like maybe they were right about me. Maybe I was just a burden, an embarrassment, something to be hidden away. But now I felt like myself again. Sarah Coleman, the woman who survived single motherhood, who worked 18-hour days, who built a life out of nothing but determination and love. When I got to my apartment, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a bottle of wine, the good stuff I'd been saving for a special occasion, and sat on my second-hand couch in my modest living room, and I laughed. Really laughed. The kind that comes from your belly and makes your whole body shake. Then I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 82 text messages. The word had already spread. The video someone took at the restaurant already had 50,000 views on TikTok. The title, Mother-in-law destroys entitled daughter-in-law at fancy restaurant. Wait for the water. But between all the calls from David and Ashley, There was one that made my heart stop. Emma's babysitter, Mrs. Coleman? Emma saw something online and she's very upset. She keeps asking for her Nana. I know it's late, but could you? I was in my car before she finished the voicemail. 20 minutes later, I was at David's house. Excuse me, Ashley's daddy's house that he'd bought for them as a wedding gift. Emma's babysitter, a college kid named Sophia, met me at the door. Thank God you're here, she said. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison keep calling, but I haven't answered. Emma won't stop crying. I found my granddaughter in her princess bed, clutching the teddy bear I'd given her for her 4th birthday. Her little face was red and puffy from crying. Nana, she launched herself into my arms. Mommy said you were going away forever. She said you didn't love us anymore. Oh, sweetheart. I held her tight, breathing in her strawberry shampoo smell. Nana's not going anywhere. And I love you more than all the stars in the sky. More than the moon, the sun, and all the planets combined. She pulled back, looking at me with those serious 5-year-old eyes. Then why did Mommy say you were mean? She called you a bad word on the phone. Sometimes grown-ups get confused, I said carefully. They forget what's really important. Like chocolate cake? I laughed. Exactly like chocolate cake. Can we make one now? It was 10 p.m. She should have been asleep hours ago. But you know what? Sometimes rules need to be broken. Let's do it, I said. We were in the kitchen, Emma standing on her little stool, stirring chocolate batter, when David and Ashley burst through the door. Ashley's makeup was still smeared, her designer dress stained from the water. David looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 2 hours. Get away from my daughter, Ashley screeched, Emma's face crumpled. Mommy, you said Nana was leaving forever. She is, Ashley snapped. Emma, go to your room. No. Emma grabbed my hand. Nana just got here. We're making celebration cake. Celebration cake? David asked weakly. For Nana being rich, Emma announced proudly. Sophia showed me the video. Nana has lots of money now, so she doesn't have to go to the old people's home in India. Indiana, I corrected, trying not to laugh. Mom, David stepped forward. We need to talk. We really don't, I said, helping Emma pour the batter into the pan. You made your position very clear at dinner. That was a misunderstanding. Was it? Was it a misunderstanding when you tried to get me to sign over power of attorney? When you called a realtor about my apartment? When you sat there silent while your wife and her parents humiliated me? Nana, Emma tugged on my shirt. Why is everyone so angry? I knelt down to her level. You know how sometimes kids at school aren't very nice? Sometimes grown-ups aren't very nice either. Even when they should know better. Ashley's phone rang. Her father. She answered it on speaker. Big mistake. Ashley. What the hell happened? I just got a call from Tom Richardson. The entire country club saw that video. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Daddy, she attacked me. With water, I called out. Very violent water. Is she there? Richard Morrison's voice got louder. You let her in your house after what she did? She manipulated us, Daddy. She pretended to be poor. I never pretended anything, I said, loud enough for him to hear. I just didn't advertise my wealth. There's a difference. This is extortion, he yelled. We'll sue! For what? I asked. For not giving you money I never said I didn't have? Good luck with that. Ashley hung up on him. Her face was red with rage. Get out of my house. Actually, I said, standing up, I think I'll be buying my own house. Maybe in this neighborhood. Would you like that, Emma? If Nana lived close by? Yes! Emma jumped up and down. Can I have a room at your house? The biggest room, I promised. With a reading nook and a toy closet and... You're not taking my daughter, Ashley snarled. I'm not taking anyone, I said calmly. But I am going to fight for grandparents' rights. And given that video of you publicly humiliating me, denying me food while discussing shipping me off to a home, I think I have a pretty good case. David finally found his voice. Mom, please, can we start over? Start over? I looked at him, really looked at him. You mean now that you know I have money? That's not... What's my favorite color, David? He blinked. What? My favorite color. You've known me for 35 years. What is it? He opened his mouth, then closed it. It's purple, Emma said. Nana loves purple like the flowers in her window. Thank you, sweetheart. I kissed the top of her head. What's my favorite book, David? My middle name? My best friend's name? The song I used to sing to you when you couldn't sleep? Each question hit him like a slap. He didn't know any of it. He'd been so busy being embarrassed by me, trying to erase me, that he'd forgotten to actually know me. You don't know because you haven't asked, I said. You haven't cared. For 3 years you've treated me like an obligation, not a mother. And now suddenly, when you find out I have money, you want to start over? That's not fair. You know what's not fair? Working 2 jobs for 15 years to give your kid everything, only to have him be ashamed of you. That's not fair. The oven timer went off. The cake was ready. Emma, honey, the cake needs to cool. How about you go get your overnight bag? Why? Ashley demanded. Because she's coming with me tonight. You two need to figure out your lives, and Emma doesn't need to see it. You can't just, I can and I will. Unless you want me to call child services about leaving a 5-year-old with a babysitter while you went out to dinner specifically to humiliate and emotionally abuse a family member? Ashley's mouth snapped shut. She knew I had them. Emma ran to get her bag, excited about a surprise sleepover with Nana. While she was gone, I faced my son one last time. I love you, David. I'll always love you. You're my son, but I don't like who you've become. You let money and status turn you into someone I don't recognize. Tears were streaming down his face now. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't erase 3 years of cruelty. Sorry doesn't undo trying to steal my home and exile me. Sorry doesn't bring back all the Sunday dinners you missed, all the calls you didn't return. Emma came back with her little pink suitcase and her teddy bear. Ready, Nana? I took her hand. You want to know the really sad part, David? I would have shared everything with you. The money, the investments, all of it. Even after how you treated me, I still had you in my will. But now? Now I'm going to make sure every penny goes to Emma when she turns 25, in a trust that you and Ashley can't touch. Mom. And I'm going to be in her life. Every day if she wants. I'm going to pick her up from school and teach her to make cookies and read her all the stories I used to read to you. I'm going to make sure she knows where she comes from, that she's proud of it, that she understands that money doesn't make you better than anyone else. Ashley stepped forward. If you try to turn our daughter against us, I don't have to, I said simply. You're doing that all by yourselves. As we walked to the door, Emma asked, Nana, are you really rich now? I am, sweetheart. Richer than Mommy's parents? Much richer. She thought about this for a moment. Can we still make box cake? I laughed, hugging her tight. We can make all the box cake you want. And can we still go to the park and feed the ducks? Every Tuesday and Thursday, just like always. Good, she said decisively. Being rich doesn't mean we have to be mean like Mommy was at dinner, out of the mouths of babes. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new house. Yes, in their neighborhood, just 3 blocks away. It's modest by the area's standards, but perfect for Emma and me. She has her promised room with the reading nook where we spend hours going through picture books. David and Ashley are in marriage counseling. He finally grew a spine and told her that her treatment of me was unacceptable. She's learning slowly that money doesn't equal worth. They're not perfect, but they're trying. And me? I'm still teaching 3rd grade, still shopping at Target, still making box mix cakes with my granddaughter. The only difference is, now I donate a lot more to the school. Anonymously, of course. And I set up college funds for every kid in my class who needs it. Because that's what money is really for. Not for lobster dinners where you humiliate family. Not for power plays and cruelty. It's for making life better for the people you love and the community around you. Emma asked me last week if I forgave her parents. I'm working on it, I told her honestly. Good, she said. Wise beyond her years. But Nana? Yes, sweetheart. Next time someone's mean to you, can I pour the water? I laughed so hard I cried. It's a deal, baby. It's a deal. And that's how I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, loving deeply, and making sure your granddaughter knows that her Nana, the teacher, the night cleaner, the woman who worked 3 jobs, is worth more than all the money in the world. But having the money doesn't hurt either. Especially when you can afford really good lawyers to make sure you never miss another Tuesday and Thursday with the only family member who loved you even when she thought you were poor.